Anywho, time to talk about gacha, because there's been some stuff going on regarding Genshin lately. So essentially what's been happening with the Hoyoverse games, so games like ZZZ, Genshin, HSR and stuff like that, essentially there've been a lot of rumors that from now on we are going to be getting dual banners, right? So like the limited banners are going to be releasing at the same time. And the thing is that, for example, in Zenless Zone Zero, this has happened. Harumasa and Miyabi's have had their banner at the same time, but they're lasting through the entire patch, right? So, first of all, I do want to preface this and say that I know this is a free game. It's a gacha game. They don't owe us anything. Like we shouldn't expect to get everything for free. It's just, this is the lay of the land. It is what it is when we play those games. Now, it doesn't mean that it has to be anti-consumer. It doesn't mean that it has to be scummy, okay? So, I am not here to just complain and be like, everything is terrible! Oh my god, what are we gonna do? I just think that it's relevant to talk about issues. And yeah, nobody's forcing you to pull any of those characters. I just think that it's bad practice. So the reason why I say it's bad practice is that because in Zenless Zone Zero, for example, we've had the most recent banners being both Miyabi and Harumasa at the same time. Harumasa has been given for free, so maybe you could say that they decided to put Harumasa's banner for at the same time as Miyabi's, because, I mean, most people are going to be pulling for it. But, like, on the bright side, it's like those two banners are at the same time, but it lasts for the entire patch. And people are expecting that to be the same thing for HSR 3.0 moving forward. Is that, for example, the Herta and the Glare might drop at the same time and last for the entire patch. We don't know if that's gonna actually be happening, but this is what people are speculating, and at least this is what people thought would be happening now that we've seen ZZZ having both new limited characters at the same time for the entire patch. So essentially, phase 1, until the end of the patch, we have the 2 new limited characters, and then phase 2, so halfway through the patch, we get the reruns, and then we will have the 2 new limited banners running at the same time, as well as the 2 rerun running in the second half of the patch. Now, the problem is that expectation was shattered, and you could say, well, you shouldn't have this kind of expectation because it didn't give us, like, news. Sure, but also, I mean, we had a precedent from one of their other games, right? And what is a little bit unfortunate here is that we have confirmed information from the official Hoylab post here that the 2 banners, aka Mavuika and Citlali, will be running at the same time. Now, the bad aspect here is that they're running at the same time, but not throughout the entire patch. Which means that we have phase 1 with 2 limited characters, and then phase 2 with 2 rerun characters. And the problem with this is that, generally speaking, the problem here is that essentially for half of the patch, we have the 2 new characters. And then for the other half of the patch, we have the rerun. The problem with this kind of separation is that at least when we have one limited in first phase and another limited in second phase, we have time to decide which character we want to pull for, or potentially we have time to farm the events, the potential new area, the new quest, etc., to get the primo gems we want for the second character, for example, right? Now the issue is that suddenly they are fully stacking the first phase with the 2 new characters, and we have no chance of essentially farming for them. And to, you know, like, can I emphasize my point, I want to show you, like, Exhibit A, essentially, is that in the second phase of the patch, we are going to be getting the lunar event. The lunar event is like the New Year event, the Chinese New Year, the Lantern Rites. And we are getting like 10 free pulls, 20 free pulls in total. But the 20 free pulls that we're getting from the lunar year, the New Year, essentially, is until 20 seconds. Want to guess when the first phase ends? The first phase ends on the 21st. Which means that the new character banner are going away the day before we're getting to 23 pools. And on the 22nd, we'll be getting rerun banners. And obviously people are kind of upset about that. And again, yes, they don't owe us anything, but this feels kind of bad that we're getting free pools after the new, like, premium characters that people have been very excited about. The new Archon, Citlali, who's like a fan favorite across the world. Like, CN absolutely loves her. In the West, we love her as well. And it just feels kind of bad. The other aspect as to why this is bad is because the good point about second phase banner is that, generally speaking, the second phase banner is still going to be up before the next live stream, before the next drip marketing. Which means that, like, let's say you're on the fence. You don't know if you want Citlali yet because she's phase 2. You're not sure. You have, like, let's say 160 pools, so you can only guarantee one character. You don't know if you want her. So you can just wait for the live stream, watch a live stream, and see that the future character that has been announced looks pretty freaking good. Like, the drip marketing has happened, but you don't know what they can do, and in-game you fall in love with their gameplay, right? And you can only see that during the live stream that happens toward the end of phase 2. So the problem is that you can't do that anymore. So you can't decide whether or not you want to save for the future character, or you want to immediately pull for phase 2 limited character. Instead, the two limited to phase 1, so you have to just hope that the future character coming out is not gonna be a character that you like more. And I think it actually, for a company that's been trying to push so hard against leaks and stuff like that, I think this pushed people toward leaks. Because if they can't tell through the live stream which is going to be the best decision for their account or for what they want to, enjoy the game with, they're going to have to look at leaks to figure out if they want to save for the next character or if they want to pull right now. And I think this is overall just pretty bad. I think it's bad. The best way, in my opinion, if they really want to do the two banner at the same time, is to do just like Zenless Zone Zero, and is to run both of them at the same time for the entirety of the patch. And I thought that was a pretty good move, but I guess it's exclusive to ZZZ, which is also unfortunate because we don't know if that's going to be the same in HSR, and we don't know if that's going to be the same moving forward in Genshin Impact. And I think the idea here is that Citlali and Mavuika are actually very, very strong together. I think Citlali is probably going to be one of the best in slot for the best team in Mavuika, so maybe they wanted to release both of them at the same time. But I think this is not it. Anyway, that's kind of what I think about this whole shenanigan. I don't really like it. That being said, yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. I think it's really bad. Anywho, moving on to the actual patch. We are getting free wings here. It's kind of whatever. This is for the Xbox thing. I guess it's available for everybody. So there we go. We're getting 20 pools, crown, and other resources for the Lantern Rite, which is going to be end of January, essentially, right? Here, the banner is actually pretty good, especially for Mavuika, right? Because we're getting Cryo Shield, which is going to be pretty good for Mavuika. Diona, if you have her C6, she's gonna buff your team's elemental mastery, which is gonna be good for your melt reaction. Bennett is gonna be probably the best support for Mavuika because of the attack buff he provides, which is absolutely bananas. And obviously Mavuika needs some Night Soul points for her ultimate generation, so I think Kachina is gonna be a very nice quote-unquote 4-star option, free to play for her, right? Because as long as you have a character that can like generate some energy through Night Soul activation, it's gonna be good for Mavuika. So this banner is essentially a decent team for Mavuika. Eventually, you probably want to replace Kachina with someone like not Citlali, Shilonen. You probably want to replace Diona with, Citlali. That would be the premium team. But this is a pretty good. Those are pretty good 4-star option for a Mavuika team if you want to play her as a main DPS. Now it's going to be not as good for Citlali specifically, because Citlali, I think running both Citlali and Diana is probably not the best option. That said, once again, Diana can buff Elemental Mastery if you have her C6, so that can work together decently. Bennett is always going to be good, but like most people, especially like if you're new, this is great, right? Otherwise, not so much. I feel like if you're pulling for Citlali, you probably won't need Kachina, so there we go. Now, the weapon banner is actually very, very good because both weapons are very strong. The new weapon for, for the Archon is very powerful. I think it's a very good journalist weapon. We're going to look at them a little bit more in detail afterward. But essentially, it's very universal. You can probably use it on any Claymore DPS, so it's very nice. And here, this weapon, it gives a lot of elemental mastery, and it's going to be a pretty good option for a lot of catalyst support, essentially. Now, if you look at the 4-star weapons here, we have the Stringless, which is a really, really good bow. It gives elemental mastery. It's very strong. It buffs your skills. Very good. Favonius Codex, very good for energy purposes. I think, is this a Favonius Lance? Same, very good for... Let me see. Does it say here? Yeah, it's Favonius Lance. So, Favonius Lance and Codex, very good for energy purposes. Those are some of the best weapons for support characters. Sacrificial Sword, incredibly powerful. If you don't have it, you definitely want it. This is the one that allows you to reset the cooldown of the skill, and then you can skill multiple times. Very, very good for energy regen, or to fix some of your characters that have very long cooldown for their rotation. And finally, the Lithic Blade is kind of underwhelming, so we're not going to talk about that. So here, this weapon banner is actually very, very good. Let's say you're pulling for Mavuika's weapon, even if you lose the 50-50, you still get a very strong weapon. So I think for once, this is a pretty good banner weapon banner to pull on. We're getting the Chronicled Wish. Essentially, we're getting all those characters here, and their weapons, their specific weapons, are also going to be on banner. Some people are freaking out. Child's weapon, because it's not shown here down there, it's actually going to be on the banner. It's just written in here. Polar Star right there. So yeah, I would still not recommend anyone to pull on this banner. I think the Chronicled Wish is not very good in my opinion. Because if you look at those characters, like Baiji is kind of niche. We just had better option nowadays. Shenhe has just not been very good for a long time. Unfortunately, Cryo is still not in a good place right now, and unfortunately, Citlali does not buff Cryo, so she feels a bit too relevant. Maybe she's gonna have a big comeback with the Tsaritsa. Kitching, she's okay as a driver for like those Bloom and Aggravate team, essentially. But even that kind of team composition has been falling out of favor lately. Ganyu, kind of same problem as Shenhe, just Cryo has not been super, super good lately. Although I think she's still a decent support and she can have her uses. I personally really love her. But yeah, not everybody's going to want to play her. As a main DPS, she's a bit complicated to play because she's a charged attack character. Chichi, I don't think I need to say anything about her. She has one niche, can be played in like some weird fridge team, but that's pretty much it. Child, I think is pretty good. I think a lot of people use it to do some fast clear and stuff like that, but he's kind of an old DPS. Like at this point, I think it's kind of the same with Chao too. Like while on paper they can be very good, I think nowadays we just have better options. Like, you know, Arlecchino, Hutao is still very good, Nuvilet, Mavuika now. So I feel like pulling on this banner is just overall not going to be a very good option. We're getting the very adorable new skin. We have this new skin for Hutao. This one will be paid. We're getting a new skin for Xiangling, which will be free from the Lunar event. And then we're getting a bunch of events here. So there we go. Overall, a bit underwhelming. I think my enthusiasm has been curbed a little bit too much by the banner shenanigan thingy that I don't really like. Now to talk very quickly about the weapons I was talking about earlier. I think they had a post right there. So the new weapons. Here we have the 1000 Blazing Sun, which is a claymore for Mavuika. It's only 11 crit rates. at level 90, and some people are a bit worried about that. But the reason why is because Mavuka is meant to be played with the Cinder City, which will give her essentially plus 40% crit rate. So essentially, even though the 11% seems low, it's really not that bad. It's meant to be played with like a big buff on the side. And even outside of characters that can benefit from that buff, it's still gonna be good because 11% crit rate here is decent, but we also get a bonus 20% crit damage. So the crit value of this weapon is still pretty high at a whopping 42% crit value. So this is really not that bad. Base attack, incredibly high. This is going to be very good for characters that need to do some shenanigans with, you know, if they have like high scaling attacks, like plunging. So like a character like Diluc is going to be pretty happy with this weapon as well. Or Gaming, for example. So when you use them to skill, you buff your crit damage by 20%, attack by 28% for 6 seconds. And that can be triggered once every 10 seconds, which is very, very good. So essentially, you have a 4-second downtown here, which is going to be, it's fine. You just do your rotation, you switch to your support while you just reset your rotation. That's going to be pretty nice. When Scorching Brilliance Incest is active, its duration is increased by 2 seconds after normal or charge attack dealt elemental damage. So if it gets triggered once every second, the max duration increase is 6 seconds. So actually, if you play this properly, you can make it so this lasts 12 seconds and the cooldown is 10 seconds, so you can actually have it permanently. So never mind what I said. Additionally, when the equipping character is in the Night Soul Blessing state, Scorching Brilliance's effect is increased by 75%. Its duration will not count down when the equipped character is off-field. So, this is specifically for Mavuika. All of the rest here, the entire thing up there is very universal, and it's going to be good regardless. Now with this, it's going to be especially amazing for Mavuika because she gets a 75% increase, which means that the 11% crit rate is... No, not the 11%, the crit damage here is essentially going to be instead a 35% crit damage. The attack increase is instead going to be like around, I want to say, 45% damage increase. And obviously, Mavuika has some off-field pyro application, so she will keep that buff when she's off-field. Duration won't count down, so this is going to be very good either to set up your rotation or to just use her as a nice off-field support. So there you go, this weapon is going to be very good, very universal, and especially good for Mavuika, obviously her best in slot, by a very large margin. Our free-to-play options are going to be not as good, obviously, but you have some decent one. I think Serpent Spine is okay. Stuff like that, right? Even Rain Slasher can have some effect in like Vape and Melt teams, if you want to rely on elemental reactions. Amongst other things, but there's other options out there. Now moving on to Citlali's weapon. Citlali's weapon is a good elemental mastery weapon. You can see here 265 elemental mastery, but on top of that we have Offering unto Wind and Sun, which increased elemental mastery by another 100, which means this is over 350 elemental mastery. On top of that, you also gain the Mirror of Night effect. Within 15 seconds, the equipping character creates a shield. The current active party members deal 28% increased damage to nearby opponents. So this is very, very strong because you get a massive elemental mastery increase, and on top of that, you will buff your team after casting a shield. How many characters do we have that actually have shield as... let me see. Because this is obviously going to be incredibly good for her. Now, do keep in mind when it comes to Citlali, I think this weapon is not as necessary or as good compared to other free-to-play options or the 5 stars. I think if you look at Mavuika, her weapon is probably about 17 to 20% stronger than the other options. The difference is not going to be as big here, so don't feel like you have to get this weapon for Citlali. To be fair, I don't feel like you have to get any weapon for any character. It's not necessary. You're fine being free-to-play and just using 4 stars if you want to. But yeah, if we look at Catalyst characters, how can I do that? Catalyst? I don't even know where to go to check this out. We'll just go to Catalyst, there we go. Charlotte can definitely use that. She's a Catalyst user. Wait, can she have a shield? No, she only heals. She cannot have a shield. Who shields here? Ningguang, maybe? Yanfei? I guess not many people can use that shield. I mean, as a statistic, the Element of Mastery, that's 365 Element of Mastery is bonkers. But for the shield, I don't really know if many characters can use it. So yeah, there you go. Anywho, overall, those weapons are very, very good, and that's why this weapon banner is awesome. If you do like pulling for weapons, definitely don't feel bad about either of those. Even if you lose your 50-50, you will be happy. So there you go. That's kind of my thoughts. Not a big fan of the whole banner shenanigans. But otherwise, still very excited. I think it's pretty unfortunate and kind of sets a bad precedent. I hope it doesn't keep that way. Or it doesn't stay that way, I suppose. Quick Genshin a while back out of Burnout. I was hoping 5.3 would have stuff for me to care about. Safe to say, I don't like the direction they're going with banners, and I think I'll just stay out for a while longer. Yeah, I get it. I understand that. Definitely. Anywho, personally, still will be playing it. I've been saving over 200 pulls, so I'll be trying to get both Citlali and Mavrika, and we'll see how that goes. Anywho, cheers!